everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm here today to share with you what I read during the month of November, and I'm feeling kind of low energy and very just chill about my reading, and I think that November really reflected that in terms of how I finished my books and the fact that I wasn't as driven by reading as I normally would be in a month. So I think just a little bit of, not burnout, but just a little bit of a calmer, quieter autumn reading is what I've been experiencing. So I'm just going to go through the books that I finished today. And the first two I'm going to talk about were the books that I read for Indigathon. And I also read this book for Nonfiction November. So those were my two biggest focuses for November, along with the Octavia E. Butler slow read along. So 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act by Bob Joseph. I did a reading vlog, an Indigathon reading vlog about this book, so it goes into more detail there. But if you are looking for a book to help you understand the ways that the Indian Act in Canada has affected Indigenous peoples, this is the book for you. It goes through 21 parts and sections of the Indian Act that were detrimental and explains why, and it also has a really great call to action area in the back, which is 21 things you can do to help change the world, and it gives you steps to engage and to work in support of Indigenous peoples in Canada. So I do really recommend this. It was really informative, and it's a very succinct book. It doesn't take a long time to get through, so I would recommend that one. And the second book that I read for Indigathon was Celia's Song by Maracle. Again, I talked about this in the Indigathon vlog, so I'll link that down below, but this book was exactly what I was hoping for. Very immersive, a magical story that had a lot of reality, like grounding in reality. Amazing characters that had a lot of depth, and this book takes a while. You have to kind of get into its rhythm, but by mid-book, if you just stick with it, you really get a payoff for that, because the story becomes really rich and deep. Trigger warnings for sexual abuse and animal cruelty in here. The story of the family living in this village and how they relate to each other and how they give each other space to become who they're supposed to be is really, really remarkable. So I would highly recommend this. It's a really great read. The other books that I read for Nonfiction November were Know My Name by Chanel Millar. And I listened to this on audio, and it was Chanel herself that narrates the story. If you're unfamiliar, Chanel Millar was Emily Doe in the Brock Turner rape case that happened in Stanford University in 2015, I believe. And she shares her story here, and I thought that she shared it with a lot of dignity, a lot of lovely references to really personal memories with her family, with her sister and her parents, like personal memories about growing up and what her life was like. So I think she did a wonderful job of, showing who she was in this story, and I really appreciated that, because I think that one of her whole pieces of motivation in this book was to humanize herself, allow herself to be seen as a human in a situation where victims are often dehumanized and made to be, you know, caricatures of a certain type of woman in order to further the defense's goal in a trial. I mean, parts of it were infuriating to read because the injustice of what she went through is just incredible. And I'm glad that some changes were made after she went through her trial process to prevent similar outcomes happening to other people. But it is definitely a testament to a prerogative of the Me Too movement and being heard, being seen, being acknowledged. And yeah, there's just so much in that book. It's really, I find it challenging to talk about it actually, but it was a very moving and powerful portrayal, and I think that she is a very powerful writer, and I'm curious to see what she writes next, and how the rest of her writing career evolves as time goes on. And then my third read for Nonfiction November was The Memory Illusion, Why You Might Not Be Who You Think You Are by Dr. Julia Shaw. And I was reading this book to do a little bit of research for an art project that I was doing. And this wasn't exactly what I was looking for. So I would say I got about a quarter, maybe almost half the way through, reading it chapter for chapter, and then I started to realize that it just wasn't going to deliver the kind of sound bites or quotes that I was looking for in terms of writing my artist statement for that piece that I've been doing about memory. So I just kind of scanned the last half of it. It has I think it's really well laid out. It has a lot of examples of studies. It's a scientific book, right? So she's approaching it from a scientific point of view. She gives lots of examples of studies and tells you, why your memory is fallible, why you can't really be multitasking, how the brain works, how the brain processes memory, all these really interesting things, but they just weren't exactly what I was looking for. So, if you're looking for something very technical about the way the memory works and how science and medicine have studied the memory thus far, check this book out. I think for me, I was just looking for something a bit more thoughtful, thinking about the nature of memory, and that just didn't really come through in the way that I was hoping for in this book. So. And I was going to be reading The Bayeux Tapestry by Carola Hicks, and I'm just carrying that over into December because I just started it about 3 or 4 days ago. So I will talk about that in my December wrap-up. And I also read Wild Seed by Octavia E. Butler, and I read this to participate in the Octavia E. Butler Slow Readathon, which is hosted by Musical Tati and Onyx Pages. And this was really, really amazing. I really enjoyed this book. This is a series. It's the Pattern Master series. And so the slow read is going to be going on into 2021. The book 2 we will be reading in through December, January. So there's always 2 months in between each book. And I attended the live show, which I will link down below because you can see it now on YouTube on Onyx's channel. On Najeri's channel. Her channel's called Onyx Pages, but her name is Najeri. It was so much fun. I really loved it. It was there was kind of a coming together on Zoom, and people had to kind of read through these agreements on how things would go, and then the 3 hosts gave their opinions of the book, and then we broke out into smaller groups where we were able to chat about the book. And then we had a wonderful performance by B. Summerwell, which is also I can link that down below as well. And because of a song that they wrote about the book. And then there was a wonderful part where everyone was reading quotes, which was really, really inspiring. And I just found the experience of sharing the book this way to be really rewarding and very, it just kind of enhanced the overall story of this book. So this book follows Doro and Anyanwu, and they are pretty much immortal in a world full of regular people who have regular lifespans, and their powers complement each other but also conflict with each other, and you follow them as they go through this relationship, this very complex relationship. The thing about Octavia Butler is her characters are so well crafted. So I read Kindred a few years ago, and I would say she crafted these characters in Wild Seed even better than in Kindred, and Kindred was wonderful. She just has this way of making you really understand the characters, even if you don't like them, and you get attached to them and you see them, learning and growing and being in the world. This story spans 200 years, I believe. It starts in the 1600s, finishes up in the 1800s, goes all the way from Africa to the United States, and it just, in the way of all good science fiction, it really expands your brain and makes you think outside the box and makes you contemplate a lot of parts of life, the nature of control, the nature of family, what it would mean to be immortal, how that would affect you personally, if it would make you feel lonely, if you would abuse your power, how you would abuse that power, the dynamics between men and women, the dynamics between shape-shifting in your body and being able to be both a man and a woman. So really, really interesting themes in this book. And I'm really looking forward to reading through the whole series. I will probably, this Octavia Butler read along is going to be covering her whole body of work. And one thing about me as a reader is I don't usually read all the books from one author like back to back. That kind of, I tend to get a fatigue with their narrative voice if I do that. But I am going to continue through this whole series. So while they're reading the Pattern Master series through this, I'm going to continue reading them. I believe there's 4 more books after this one. So, and interestingly, these books were not published in this order. So we're reading them in the chronological order of the story, but this book was actually published after other books in this series were written. So that, I find that very intriguing, but I just for the purposes of following along with the read along, I'm going to be reading them in the order that they've chosen for the read along. So yeah, you'll see these Octavia Butler books popping up in my TBRs over the next few months, and really, really enjoyed the experience. So I would recommend, if you are interested at all in reading more of Octavia Butler's work, that you follow along with the slow readathon and slow read along, and yeah, I think it's definitely a unique and a really rewarding experience. The hosts are doing just a wonderful job of making this such a great inclusive event to be a part of. The other book that I finished in November was The Outlander by Gil Adamson. Gil Adamson is a Canadian writer who was shortlisted for the Giller Prize, and she did not win, but she was shortlisted for the follow-up to The Outlander, which is called The Ridge Runner. So I wanted to read The Outlander. So The Outlander was a really great adventure story. It didn't really tell you exactly where it was located in Canada, but I think it may have been somewhere in the more eastern part of Alberta and then moving up through the Rocky Mountains onto the other side of the Rocky Mountains into a mining town. But you're basically following a young widow, and she is a widow because she murdered her husband. You know that right at the beginning. And so it's this adventure where she's being chased by her two brother-in-laws to be brought back for justice. And so you're rooting for her. I was rooting for her through the whole story, and you follow her as she, propels herself through towns and encounters people and goes off into the wilderness alone, and how that plays out for her. She has a bit of magical ability. She can kind of see ghosts. I liked her character. I mean, I don't think the book was, it didn't have anything mind-blowing in it or anything that I adored. It was just an entertaining read. So I definitely was wrapped up in the story, and it did its job of making me feel like I was kind of removed from the situation around me and just lost in an adventure. So those were the books that I read in November, and I will be back again soon to share more about my reading as the year winds to an end. And thank you so much for watching.